Okay, due to time constraints today, we're skipping the small discussions, and I'm just going to lecture. The first question, do you think the dagger that Macbeth imagines is a warning or a guide? Let's look at this. This is on page 1268, scene 2, act 1. Here. Is this a dagger which I see before me, the handle toward my hand? Come, let me clutch thee. And like here you can imagine maybe Macbeth is like reaching out to grab in the middle of the air. I have thee not, and yet I see thee still. Art thou not, fatal vision, sensible to feeling as to sight? So I can see you, but I can't touch you? Or art thou but a dagger of the mind, a false creation, proceeding from the heat oppressed brain? Heat oppressed means feverish, like having a fever, Fasalde. I see thee yet, in form as palpable as this which now I draw. And then he pulls out a real dagger to compare. Thou marshalst me the way that I was going. To marshal means to gather and to lead and guide. And such an instrument I was to use. Mine eyes are made the fools of the other senses, or else worth all the rest. So either my eyes are the worst of all of my five senses, or else they are the most valuable. So either the dagger is not there, in which case my eyes are lying to me, or the dagger is there, in which case all of my other senses are worthless. I see thee still, and on thy blade and dudgeon gouts of blood. So a dudgeon, the footnote tells you, is the hilt. The hilt is the part on top of your hand that protects your hand. Dao Chalma. I don't know, but like a dagger has three parts, right? The blade, the handle, and in between the blade and the handle is the hilt. So here he's saying he sees blood on the hilt and the blade, which was not so before. There's no such thing. It is the bloody business which informs thus to mine eyes. And so Macbeth's conclusion is, no, the dagger is not real. I'm just so consumed and obsessed with the fact that I'm going to murder the king. So the question is that imagined dagger a warning or a guide? It seems like we have elements of both, right? You can think of this as negative or positive. Is it telling Macbeth, don't do this, or is it telling Macbeth, you're going to do this? So the negative is, of course, that blood, right? Blood on the blade and dudgeon, and it's kind of scary. Um, the positive is Macbeth himself says that the blade leads me to what I was going to do. I'm going to use something like this to kill the king. And in between, we have the detail of like it looks so real that Macbeth, even though it's hanging in the middle of the air, he tries to grab it. He doubts himself. He doesn't know whether he should trust his eyes or his hands. So it's supernatural. It's like a ghost of a dagger. And we know that in this play, the supernatural can be a guide and a warning, right? The weird sisters do in fact tell Macbeth what's going to happen, but they're so creepy and scary. Um, and ultimately, we later see lead Macbeth to his death. And before that, the weird sisters also caused a lot of death. Um, this week, we see that they caused the death of Duncan. They caused the death of Banquo. So it could be very negative, like a kind of warning. Um, but really, like the logic of the supernatural sometimes is not that easy to categorize. It could be scary as a warning, but you can also say because the weird sisters do tell the truth that it could also be a guide as well. Um, you could say that this is the final, uh, last moment of possible regret. Like, Macbeth at first hesitates, but then his wife convinces him. But he still has some doubt in his mind about whether he should really kill the king or whether he's going to kill the king. So you can say that this imagined dagger is his last chance to stop. If he does decide to stop, then it's a warning. But if he decides to continue, then it's a kind of guide. Um, so it could be both depending on Macbeth's own mindset. And we can tell that difference if we see a live performance, whether the actor feels more scared or whether the actor feels more like curious. If the actor feels more scared, it would be treating the dagger as a warning, whereas curiosity would be like leading Macbeth onward. It's also interesting to think like, how would you perform this? Would you just have the actor playing Macbeth kind of imagine a dagger? Would you have like some special effects, like a projector projecting a dagger onto the stage? Would you have someone dressed in black holding up a dagger? There are many different ways that you can try to present this. In the film that we watched, there was no dagger, but like the camera kept shifting focus to show that something strange was happening and that Macbeth was doubting his own sanity. Was there a dagger in the film? I think there was, right? Like in the middle of the air, just like there for no reason. Okay, do you have other thoughts about number one? Okay, if not, let's look at number two. Why is the porter in this play? What is his function? So, if you remember, the end of this scene is after they kill Duncan. There's a knocking sound, right? There's a knock, knock, and then Macbeth says, "Wake Duncan with thy knocking. I would thou couldst." If only you could wake him up with the sound of knocking. And then Act 2, Scene 3, enter a porter. First of all, we notice that he is not talking in verse, he is talking in prose. So, according to the logic of the play, he is not one of the more important people. He's not a noble. Indeed, he only appears in this one scene. Here's a knocking indeed. If a man were porter of Hell Gate, he should have old turning the key. Old means plenty of. He should have, he's very familiar with the turning of the key. And then another knock. Knock, knock, knock. Who's there the name of Beelzebub? Beelzebub is a devil. So he's like cursing. Here's a farmer that hanged himself on the expectation of plenty. Come in time. Uh, so like he's kind of like imagining or supposing, you might even say joking about what kind of person he might find on the other side of the gate. The first one is a farmer who um, planted too much. It was expecting a lot of crop and therefore a lot of money, but because he planted too much, the price of the crop was too low, and he didn't make enough money. So, like you could say, hang himself literally, like he killed himself because he didn't have enough money. You can also say that this is figurative, like he hurt himself by trying to help himself. Have napkins enough about you. Here you'll sweat for it. A napkin is just something you would use to wipe away sweat. Why would there be sweat? Because they're in hell, right? Hell's Gate, swearing by Beelzebub, guy that kills himself. The porter is like talking as if he's manning the gates of hell. Another knock. Knock, knock. Who's there? By the way, this is the origin of the knock, knock joke. Macbeth, really influential play on the English language. Who's there in the other devil's name? Faith, here's an equivocator that could swear in both the scales against either scale, who committed treason enough for God's sake, yet could not equivocate to heaven. So to equivocate today means to not say something plainly or not say something directly. You can see this in the root of the word. Vocate in Latin means to talk or to speak, and equi, of course, means equal. So whether you say this or whether you say that, you can't tell which one. The original meaning of this word we see in the footnotes. There's a very long footnote here. Uh, some Jesuit, 耶稣会成员, was executed for treason, and when he was trying to defend himself, he appealed to the doctrine of equivocation, which means that a lie was not a lie if the person saying it had in his mind a different meaning in which the utterance was true. So, like a very simple example would be um, if I say that is not true to answer like your question, but I'm not thinking of what you're thinking of. I'm thinking of something else, and that something else indeed is not true. So if I use your meaning, I'm lying, but in fact, in my heart, I'm using another meaning, and therefore it's not a lie. Obviously, this is bullshit. And so the defense failed, and this guy was in fact hanged or executed in some other way. So, like, he's another member of hell or a resident of hell, right? So the porter says he could swear in both the scales against either scale. So he could speak for both sides. Um, and he did, in fact, commit treason. That's why he was killed. But his strategy of equivocation did not lead him to heaven. That's why he's now in hell. Oh, come in, equivocator. Knock. Knock, knock, knock. Who's there? Faith, here's an English tailor come hither for stealing out of a French hose. So the footnote tells us, first of all, a tailor is someone who makes clothing. And apparently at the time, French clothing used less cloth and was also more fashionable. So if an English tailor sells French clothing or makes and sells French clothing, it's the tailor is able to make more money. But of course, this is cheating because when people buy from an English tailor, they often like will designate they want the English style, not the French style. Hose refers to the tights that men used to wear instead of pants. Come in, tailor. Here you may roast your goose. The footnote has some interesting explanations of this phrase. A goose could be an iron, ringo. A goose could be a sex worker. And it might be related to the phrase to cook your goose, which means to hurt yourself, to do something that hurts yourself. Knock, 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 never at quiet. What are you? But this place is too cold for hell. So like the porter was kind of drunk, now he's kind of waking up. I'll devil porter it no further. I had thought to have let in some of all professions that go the primrose way to the everlasting bonfire. So his original plan was to like list out all of the kinds of people that many believe end up in hell. The primrose way. Um, this refers to the English phrase, "The road to hell is lined with roses," or "the royal road to hell," which means like often what looks like the best course of action can often lead to bad consequences. Or like you might do things with the best intentions, but the consequences may end up very bad. Knock. Anon, anon, which means soon, soon, or I'm coming. He opens the gate. I pray you remember the porter, which means like remember here just means like uh like when you say don't forget me, it means praise me. Remember the good that I have done you. So here it's kind of funny because his job is to open the door. But when he finally opens the door after like waiting for so long, he tells them, "Remember, I opened the door for you. Don't forget me." Enter Macduff and Lennox. Was it so late, friend, ere you went to bed, that you do lie so late? Did you go to bed so late that now you have a hard time waking up? Faith, sir, we were carousing till the second cock, and drink, sir, is a great provoker of three things. So he says, yes, we were partying until the second crow of the second crow of the rooster. So in the morning, traditionally, the rooster crows three times. And after the third time, then it's considered morning. So he's saying we partied almost till the morning. And alcohol can provoke three things. What three things does drink especially provoke? Marry, sir, nose painting, sleep, and urine. Nose painting means like the nose turns red because of the blood flow of the alcohol. For a lot of Asian people, the whole face turns red. Lechery, sir, it provokes and unprovokes. Lechery means lust, acting on lust, lustful behavior. It provokes the desire, but it takes away the performance. Therefore, much drink may be said to be an equivocator with lechery. It makes him and it mars him. To mar means to hurt. It's my screen just died. Okay, so no, sorry. Okay, it sets him on and it takes him off. It persuades him and disheartens him, which means discourages him. Makes him stand to and not stand to. Uh, it could mean make someone show up and be ready, and then not show up and be ready. But of course, this is also a sex pun. In conclusion, equivocates him in a sleep, and giving him the lie leaves him. I believe drink gave thee the lie last night. So to give him the lie means to make him tell something that's not true, and also it makes him lie down. That it did, sir, in the very throat of me, so very deeply so, very true. But I requited him for his lie. I paid it back. And I think being too strong for him, though he took up my legs sometimes, yet I made a shift to cast him. So the language is the language of wrestling. He pinned my legs, but I threw him off. But of course, he's also talking about he made me lie down, but I managed to cast him means to throw him out, throw him off. You can say to throw him up. Vomit. And then he leaves. So, like, what does the porter do? He tells several knock knock jokes, and then he talks about the relationship between alcohol and sex. and he comes right after the Macbeth couple kill Duncan. And he comes just before, right? Macduff asks, "Is the king stirring? Is the king awake?" So he comes just before everyone else discovers the king's body. So the question is, why is he in the play? What is his function? I think it's quite clear he's there as comic relief. He's there to make the audience laugh. And we saw a similar role in Much Ado About Nothing with uh, the Night Watch, Vergas, and those people. And in that play, we considered those bumbling idiots to be like more lighter hearted and like um, creating a sense of urgency and tension using comic elements. But here, the function seems to be rather different. Macbeth is a tragedy. It's full of murder and ghosts. And then right in the most tense part of the play, we get this kind of joking scene. We know that somebody is going to discover Duncan's body. It's part of the Macbeth's plan. But we don't know who, we don't know how, and we don't know whether the Macbeths will get away with it. So here there is also some tension, but really it also functions as a kind of pause, right? We're so caught up in the drama of killing the king, and then later on we're going to get so caught up in the drama of what will the Macbeths say as an excuse. In the middle, Shakespeare gives us a little break. We can laugh a bit, release our tension, and then we can jump back into the drama. And the humor is not just random humor, it's also related to what's going on, right? Because there's a lot of jokes about people showing up in hell. Presumably, most of the audience is thinking that Macbeth should be one of them. So it's very related. Okay, other thoughts about question two? No, okay, let's move on. Question three. Donald Bain says that the nearer in blood, the nearer bloody. So this is after they have discovered that the king has died. Malcolm and Donalbain, if I remember correctly, are the king's two sons. Let me double check that. Mm, yes, Malcolm and Donalbain are his two sons. So the king has died, which makes those two the next in line to be king. But that also puts them in danger. Okay, so here, everybody except for these two leave the stage. Malcolm, what will you do? Let's not consort with them, so let's not stay with them. To show an unfelt sorrow is an office which the false man does easy. So someone who lies can also very easily pretend to be sad. He's talking about the killer. Like the fact that Macbeth kills the people who are supposed to have killed the king before they can ask them what really happened is very suspicious. So here Malcolm is kind of saying like, what if it was not the guards who killed the king? What if it was someone else? And that someone else is lying to everyone? Then they could very easily be pretending to be sad. In other words, we're still in danger. I'll to England. Donalbain. To Ireland I. Our separated fortune shall keep us both the safer. If we split apart, we will be safer. Where we are, there's daggers and men's smiles. Literally in Chinese, 笑里藏刀. The nearer in blood, the nearer bloody. Malcolm, this murderous shaft that shot hath not yet lighted. A shaft is an arrow. So someone has let fly a murderous arrow, but the arrow has not yet hit its target. It is still in the air. Somebody may possibly still be hit by this arrow. And our safest way is to avoid the aim. So we should try to get out of the way of this arrow. Therefore, to horse, and let us not be dainty of leave taking. So let's not be too slow and careful about going away, but shift away. Like we need to disappear now. There's warrant in that theft which steals itself, and there's no mercy left. So here he's referring to the phrase to steal away, which means to sneak away very quickly. So he's saying it's a good idea, there's warrant in the kind of stealing that is stealing away when there's no mercy left, when you are in danger. So first of all, the general question, what is the danger? If the king has died, then these two are next in line to become king. Someone killed the king for a reason. And the reason was probably not to make Malcolm king early. It was probably to try to steal the throne for him or herself. So if that's the case, then the person would have to kill Malcolm and Donalbain as well to make sure that nobody from Duncan's family becomes king. Then they can become king or queen themselves. So these two believe that they're still in danger. Their first strategy is to split up Malcolm to England, Donalbain to Ireland. Remember, they are currently in Scotland. And Donalbain says, if we split up, we'll be safer. The idea here seems to be like if they do split up, first of all, it could be harder to find both of them. And secondly, even if someone does find both of them, if it's not easy to kill both at the same time. So if they kill one of them first, and like they have like a servant or soldier or a messenger who runs to the other person to tell them, hey, like my guy died, then the other person can prepare or run away to somewhere else, things like that. So staying apart is safer. We still do this today. Whenever the whole government comes together for like an important meeting or like to listen to a speech, there will be one person who will not be at that meeting. That person is called the designated survivor. So that if something happens and like maybe the whole building blows up, at least one person can still continue the functions of government. And then the other reason that they run is what I'm asking about with this question. Donalbain says, the nearer in blood, the nearer bloody. And the footnote says this means the closer the relationship, the greater the danger to be feared of bloody intent. So the closer you are, the more danger you are in. I guess that kind of makes sense, right? Because they know that it has to be someone in this room who killed Duncan. They just don't know who. And everybody in this room is close to Duncan, to the other nobles. They're all like important nobles themselves. So if you stick close to this group of important nobles, you will continue to be in danger. We can also take this phrase other meaning, blood as in blood relations. The closer you are related to someone, the more danger you are in. And this goes back to like who is next in line for the throne. Now that Duncan's dead, his first son Malcolm is next in line. If Malcolm dies, then his second son Donalbain comes next in line. But after Donalbain, who gets the throne? If Donalbain dies, who's next? The most important noble. And I believe at that time the most important noble was uh, Cawdor. And if you remember who's Cawdor, Macbeth is Cawdor. So already they're kind of suspecting maybe it's Macbeth. He has the greatest motive. So because Macbeth is the most closely related to Duncan, therefore he poses the greatest danger. So the nearer in blood, the nearer bloody. And it often is the case that the people who understand us the most are also the people who are able to hurt us the most. A common theme in, I guess, literature and also life is whether family can be trusted. Uh, there's even a phrase in English to describe this. Blood is thicker than water. In Chinese, we have translated that to 血浓于水. Uh, and today it means that family is more important than friendship, but that was not its original meaning. The original meaning was that the blood of brothers in war, your comrades in war, is more important than the water of the womb, 阳水. So in fact, the original meaning was the exact opposite, saying that the friends and comrades you make in life are more important than your family. So the fact that this meaning has changed tells us that family relations can be very complicated. Um, and that idea is also present in this phrase as well. It's even more complicated if you're a royal family. Okay, other thoughts about question 3? No? All right, let's move on to question 4. Do you think it makes sense for Macbeth to challenge fate, to cry, "Come fate into the list and champion me to the utterance"? If you do, why? If you don't, why not? This, by the way, this sentence, it means fate, come and fight me one-on-one until one of us wins and one of us loses. So he's inviting fate to come and fight him. He's challenging fate. Let's see, where is this? Okay, so we're on page 1274. In this scene, Macbeth, sorry, 1275. In this scene, gosh, where is it? Line 72. Yeah, okay, so it's 1274, yes, here. Okay, in this scene, Macbeth is thinking about the prophecy again. No son of mine succeeding. So I have become king, but according to the weird sisters, none of my sons will become king. If be so, for Banquo's issue have I filed my mind. So I've polluted my soul, I've worried myself to death over a kingdom that will then go to Banquo's children, not mine. For then the gracious Duncan have I murdered, put rancors in the vessel of my peace only for them. So everybody suspects Macbeth, but there's no proof, and now he's king. So there is no peace in his kingdom. Rancor is a lack of peace. And mine eternal jewel given to the common enemy of man to make them kings, the seeds of Banquo, kings. Rather than so, come fate into the list and champion me to the utterance. So he's saying, no, I don't accept this fate. Come fate, I will fight you one-on-one like a man. So the question is, like, does it make sense for Macbeth to say this or to think this? By the way, what does he do to fight fate? He brings in two murderers to try and kill Banquo and his son Fleance. And then the murderers kill Banquo, but they don't manage to kill Fleance. So fate wins, I guess. But yeah, the question is, does it make sense for him to challenge fate? For any other person, the answer would be an obvious yes, because we don't know what our fate is. Macbeth kind of does know. The Weird Sisters have told him. And in fact, this is exactly why he's challenging fate, because he doesn't like what the Weird Sisters have said. So, up to this point, everything that the Weird Sisters have said has come true. So, does it make sense for Macbeth to still challenge fate in this way? On the one hand, what harm could it do, right? The fate for him is already very disadvantageous for him. It's already for him like the worst case scenario. So it's not like things could get even worse, right? I mean, I guess he could die, but that's why he's not going to fight Banquo himself. He's sending people to kill Banquo for him. So like, there's no downside. On the other hand, we who know how the play ends, we know that for fate to come true, it actually depends on Macbeth doing something. So, like later, the Weird Sisters told him he will not be defeated by any of woman born, and then Macduff turns out not to have been born from a woman, but to have been born by a C-section. But if Macbeth had been afraid of Macduff and had not fought him, then he would not have been killed by Macduff. Or the other part of the prophecy where like Macbeth cannot be defeated until the Burnham Wood moves to attack him. So because of this prophecy, Macbeth is not afraid of any army until he sees trees moving on the battlefield. And we might think that if he had not heard this prophecy, maybe he would have been more careful with his army. So the fate that comes true only comes true because Macbeth helps it come true. And he helps it come true because he is misled by the three weird sisters. So, in fact, in some strange way, he could be making things worse. For example, um, here he sends two guys to kill Banquo and Fleance, and they don't get Fleance. Whereas maybe if he had not heard that prophecy, he would not try to kill Banquo and Fleance. Maybe we're going to see in the next question, like trying to kill Banquo and succeeding kind of makes him go a little crazy and it further ruins his reputation. And these negative results may not have happened if he had not tried to do this. And he only tries to do this because he heard some part of the prophecy. So in one sense, it is a kind of self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Like um, what's his name? Oedipus, right? He tries to avoid fate, and thereby he makes it come true. Um, so this you can consider an example of what we call dramatic irony. The character doesn't know what's going to happen, but we readers do know what's going to happen. And that difference is a sense of irony. They do things without knowing what will happen when they do them. So, like for Macbeth in this moment, it does make sense to try to fight against fate, but we who know what will happen in the future um, regret that he thinks this. If you knew everything, Macbeth, you would not try to do this. Okay, other thoughts about question 4? All right, question 5. Macbeth tries to kill Banquo, succeeds, and then he has to pretend like, wait, where'd Banquo go? We're having a party and he's not here. And because he's too much of a hypocrite, Banquo's ghost appears. So how would you stage this? How would you perform this? How would you present this? I should say. Okay, banquet. Everybody comes. Um, and then, like, in the middle of the banquet, the murderers appear, and he's like, Macbeth is like, okay, wait a second, I have to deal with this. And the murderer tells him, oh, we killed Banquo, but Fleance escaped. And Macbeth is like, oh no, now I am cabined, cribbed, confined, bound into saucy doubts and fears. So he's getting anxious again. All of these words just means like restricted, right? I cannot escape my anxiety. Uh, okay, so at this point, he knows that Banquo is dead, but he also knows that he did not achieve his goal. Um, so la-di-da, they're going on with the party. Enter the ghost of Banquo and sits in Macbeth's place. So like Macbeth is the host. He's going around like drinking and talking to people. So the ghost of Banquo sits in his chair. And then someone says, "May it please your highness sit." So very being very polite, right? Please sit. And Macbeth says, "Here had we now our country's honor roofed, were the graced person of our Banquo present." So roofed here means like reach its highest point. We would have had all the honor in the land if only Banquo were here. Like we're just missing this one guy. Who may I rather challenge for unkindness than pity for mischance? So he's kind of joking, saying, he's doing this on purpose. Fun guy. His absence, sir, lays blame upon his promise. He did promise to show up. Please, your highness, to grace us with your royal company. So, like, please sit and join us. Macbeth, seeing his place occupied. Uh, so he sees someone in his seat. Maybe at this moment he does not recognize that it's Banquo. The table's full. Here's a place reserved, sir. Where? Here, my good lord. What is that moves your highness? To move means to agitate, to make excited or like full of nervous energy. So we can assume that at this moment, Macbeth realizes who exactly is sitting there. And he says, which of you have done this? So of course, Macbeth knows Banquo is dead. And then he sees Banquo sitting in his chair. Like most people, his first assumption would be that this is some kind of trick. So he's saying, okay, who did this? What, my good lord? Thou canst not say I did it. Never shake thy gory locks at me. So here it seems like he's talking to the ghost. Macbeth is saying, I didn't kill you. I did not hold the knife that killed you. So like, don't shake your head at me. Lock means lock of hair. So here meaning head. A lock of hair in Chinese, 一绺头发. So here, apparently the ghost of Banquo is shaking his head. Gory means bloody. So this tells us the ghost looks bloody. And then they're like, oh no, the king is going crazy. And then Lady Macbeth is like, don't worry, he just sometimes does this. It'll be fine. Don't pay any attention to him. And then she talks to Macbeth, are you a man? This, of course, goes back to earlier when Lady Macbeth convinced Macbeth to go through with killing the king by saying, like, I'm more of a man than you are. So here she's reminding him of this. And then Macbeth tells her what, like, he sees the ghost, and she says, "This is the very painting of your fear. This is the air-drawn dagger which you said led you to Duncan." So she says, "This is the same thing as that dagger you saw in the middle of the air. It's not real. Don't pay attention to it. When all's done, you look but on a stool. So at the end of the day, you're only looking at a chair." And he's like, "But look, no, 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 look, it's the ghost of Banquo right there." Blah, blah, blah. And then the ghost leaves. According to the editor, the ghost leaves. Macbeth says, "If I stand here, I saw him." No, I really did see him. And then they talk about the fact that they killed Banquo, and Lady Macbeth reminds him, "Hey, you're at a party. Your noble friends do lack you. I do forget. Do not muse at me, my most worthy friend." So now Macbeth is reassuring his friends that nothing is wrong. And then the ghost comes back. "Macbeth, I drink to the general joy of the whole table and to our dear friend Banquo, whom we miss." Man, this guy is terrible. Would he were here, if only Banquo were here. And then blah blah blah. He sees the ghost again, and then he talks to the ghost again, like, "Go away, you're already dead. Stop staring at me with those eyes. Thou hast no speculation in those eyes, which thou dost glare with. Like, you can't see anything through your eyes because you're dead. So stop staring at me." And then Lady Macbeth is like, "Oh no, it's happening again." Macbeth keeps on talking to the ghost. The ghost leaves. He says, "I am a man again. Pray you sit still." So telling his guests, "No, no, no, don't go. I'm fine. I'm fine." Uh, and then the ghost doesn't come back again. He only comes twice. So the question is, how would you do this scene? If we are back in Shakespeare's time, we have an indoor stage. You can imagine like a long table, and like everyone is sitting around the table facing the audience. Maybe Macbeth is standing on one side, but his chair is on the other side. And so like he's walking around, he enters the room from behind his chair. He's walking around talking to people. And then when he gets to the other side, by the way, the other side, it should be Lady Macbeth. So he's standing near his wife, and he looks over and he sees some dude sitting in his chair. So like in Shakespeare's time, the best way to do this would be to get the actor who plays Banquo to like put on some fake blood or something and then sit there. And then maybe to make it more creepy, you can not light this part of the stage. So we can only see the table and the chairs. Maybe Macbeth's chair is less well lit, it's kind of darker. So even the audience might not be sure, is there somebody in that chair? So like you have the actor kind of slowly walk over and sit down, half in the light, half in the dark. And then like Macbeth sees him, he raves and like soliloquizes and goes crazy. And then when the ghost leaves, he could like stand up and walk back into the darkness. Very uh secretly, sneakily. So like even the audience doesn't notice when the ghost disappears and when the ghost returns. If we're doing this today, or I guess another option would be just like to not have anybody in the chair. Just like the dagger, you can have no dagger. You can just have Macbeth pretend to see somebody in his chair. If we're doing this today, we have more high-tech options. We can also use a projection to like project somebody onto the chair. We could have like a 3D hologram, 3D 投射. That would be really cool. We can even have like a moving stage if you want to do some really crazy stuff. Some stages have what's called a turntable. So like the middle of the stage will turn. So like we could do this scene on a turntable, and so uh, it makes it seem less steady. It makes it seem less sure, less certain. Um, so we can arrange it so that let's say whenever Macbeth is talking to the ghost, we see them on opposite ends. But whenever the ghost disappears, the table has turned 90 degrees, and we can therefore see the other guests interacting, and we can see Macbeth trying to comfort the other guests, and we can see Lady Macbeth talking to them as well. So like there are many options you can do here. I'm wondering if we can do this with fewer people. We could, like a very artistic way to do this would be on stage, only two people, Macbeth and Lady Macbeth. And the audience imagines the other guests. We would have to rewrite the play a little bit, right? Because you have lines from other people as well. But they're not many lines, right? They're very short lines. Um, I guess you could have like a speaker say those lines, like from backstage. Um, you could have Macbeth paraphrase those lines, or Lady Macbeth as well. So, like for example, when Ross says, "Gentlemen, rise! His Highness is not well." Instead, you could have Lady Macbeth say, uh, "His Highness is perfectly well. Don't get up." So we would have the same idea without having to hear from these other people. So in fact, you could do the whole scene with just two people, and that could also be quite interesting. So yeah, many different ways to have fun with ghosts on stage. Okay, other thoughts about today's questions? Okay, next week, before next week, please finish the play. And then next week, we also will not have group discussion because I want to leave some time to introduce the final exam. Week 16 is a holiday, so next week will be the last week. Okay, that's it. Go have lunch.